Welcome to Two Open Doors, the podcast that explores our power to open or close the doors of relationship with the important people in our lives. We hope you'll learn from and share your wisdom with our community. Thanks for joining us. Many of us grew up in a society in which we humans come in one of two flavors or genders, male or female. Over time, a menagerie of new gender-related terms arose, describing things such as orientation, identity, or expression. These are often defined or used imprecisely. Sex and gender are important facets of the human identities that we bring to our relationships. In this episode, we'll visit some of the relevant terminology, and we'll explore how these terms relate to one another. Let's consider some of the puzzle pieces. In understanding who we are as individuals, we need to consider both what we can perceive of them from the outside, that is, people's external traits, and how they experience their own reality, which is their internal experience. In addition, we need to look from the scope of the individual as well as from the broader scope of society at large. These multiple perspectives are interrelated. Let's turn first to considering a person's perception of their own biology. Let's start by thinking about what we can perceive of an isolated individual, that is, their external traits. These include a person's biological and physiological makeup, including things such as their genetics, their hormonal status, and their reproductive organs. These can all be objectively observed and described. However, even just the physical aspects of sex are not a simple matter. The two anchor sexes of male and female each have well-defined and strongly associated traits, such as differing levels of testosterone or estrogen, differing amounts of muscle mass, etc. However, some intersex individuals are born with traits from both male and female on a spectrum. This can include things such as an enlarged clitoris, a small penis, a closed vagina, and many other possibilities. In a small fraction of 1% of births, gender is ambiguous. The person's external genitalia do not match their internal genitalia, that is, gonads or ovaries. Even purely physically, people do vary. The physical aspects of our personal biological nature are observable by others. Those around us can see our physical form, as well as our behavior. Almost at the moment we're born, these externally visible traits are used to classify us. We are assigned a birth gender based on the shape of our genitalia. In this process, males have a penis and testicles, while females have a vagina and clitoris. For those born as intersex, their gender may or may not be properly recognized at birth. Birth gender has a major impact on how society treats an individual. It serves as a template for the gender expectations that society lays on that individual. Society has rigid, narrow expectations on how each gender presents in terms of appearance and behavior. Boys are expected to dress and behave in specific ways, and the same holds true for girls. Society makes no allowance for intersex. Gender is treated as a binary thing, that is, male or female. What that means is that intersex people are generally treated as different, and in society, difference from the norm is generally met with rejection or even repression. The next level of complexity comes with a person's perception of themselves. That perception exists in the realm of the mind, emotions, and spirit. We each experience life and how we inhabit the world in a particular way. That personal perception includes the feelings that our experiences elicit. Some people seem to be exquisitely sensitive to sensations, which may cause intense emotions in them. Others appear to be far less so. Some are very confident and aggressive in pursuing experiences and relationships, while others seem much more guarded and inward-focused. There are many other personality dimensions along which people vary. Each person develops a gender identity, or a concept of themselves. This is based on both their physical traits and on the ways in which they experience their interactions with the world and with others. It's of course difficult or impossible to adequately describe what it means to experience life as a woman or as a man or as intersex, but it seems likely that each of us does have a personal internal model for what those terms mean. Our gender identity biases who we seek out as sexual partners. Our partner preferences define our sexual orientation. Those preferences depend on how we see others express their own internal gender identity through their gender expression. We'll discuss that shortly. We can prefer to relate sexually with those of a different gender expression than our own, in which case we are heterosexual, since hetero is the Greek root for different. We may instead look for those with a similar gender expression, in which case we are homosexual, since homos is the Greek root for same. Our partner preferences may span same and different, in which case we're pansexual, with pan being the Greek root for all. How we perceive ourselves guides how we display our gender identity to the world. The external manifestation of our gender identity is referred to as our gender expression. Gender expression can include many kinds of manifestations, such as how we dress, how we maintain our personal appearance, for example short or long hair, whether we use makeup, our mannerisms and behavior, etc. Our gender expression is the face that we present in society. So what happens when a person's gender identity or self-conception and/or gender expression or manifestations of that self-identity collide with the gender expectations that society imposes on that person? That is the unfortunate situation that transgender people find themselves in. In such cases, a person's view of their own identity conflicts with the box that society insists on stuffing them into. When a person perceives a big disparity between their self-image and how they see society viewing them, that can induce a form of distress referred to as gender dysphoria. The resulting conflict and social rejection can take a terrible psychic toll. In some surveys, over half of teen trans males report having attempted suicide, as well as about 30% of teen trans females. The figures are not much more encouraging for intersex youth, about 42% of whom have reported making suicide attempts. Some transgender individuals choose to reduce the gap between their internal image of themselves and their birth gender physical traits. Such people can elect to undergo one of several forms of gender transition, in which case they change their physical traits. For example, someone who has a male birth gender but who feels like a woman trapped in a man's body may choose to undergo a regime of estrogen treatment to reduce male physical characteristics and to acquire female traits such as enlarged breasts. Surgical procedures may also be invoked to alter male genitalia and to perhaps replicate female genitalia. Such procedures are obviously difficult and life-altering, but they can be very psychically satisfying to those who subsequently feel more aligned with who they believe they truly are. We have already seen in our look at intersex that society has a very low tolerance for differences. The same holds true in spades for transgender individuals. These socially different individuals often experience harassment or bullying, social rejection, family rejection, and other forms of discrimination and rejection. However stalwart such LGBTQ individuals may be, they require help from fair-minded mainstream individuals. That help can come in the form of friends and family confronting discriminatory behavior against LGBTQ. It can also come from parents and friends who create a safe space for all. All stakeholders in education can also stay on alert for biased curricula and educational materials in order to increase social awareness and acceptance over time. So let's talk a little bit now about recognizing diversity. We've just taken a quick trip through a number of complicated, subtle, but very important topics. Let's close by considering what these mean for our deep interest in human relationships. One of the major benefits offered by a deep relationship is that it offers us an opportunity to really come to know who our partner is. It's hard to conceive of an aspect of personal identity that cuts deeper than one's gender. As we've seen, being aware of who one is requires looking behind external physical appearance to also include that person's conception of themselves. My personal belief is that each person has the right to determine their self-image. That's not something that society has a right to impose on an individual. If anything, a society that seeks to support its citizens has an obligation to respect and support each person's self-determined identity. The concept of intersectionality describes the many interconnected aspects of social and political identity, things such as race, gender, social class, and group affiliation. Intersectionality is important because with each social distinction come opportunities for discrimination and for the exercise of privilege. If one is interested in social equity, as I am, it's essential that we stay attuned to how society is treating those differences so that we can attempt to counter things that we view as unjust. A society can't address beliefs or behaviors that are inequitable unless we can honestly and responsibly discuss those behaviors. It's possible for some topics to become so charged that we can't discuss them. Think about some of today's commonplace political dialogue, for example, with its weaponized use of terms such as elites, or libs, or woke, or deplorables. Without viable dialogue, we can't surface the valid perspectives and points of concern of all parties, thus precluding fair consideration for all. Mutual respect is a basic ingredient in all healthy relationships, be they in our personal life or in our social and political life. Let's strive to be aware of how we perceive and manage differences so that we can know our partners better, while also understanding and respecting everyone better. To learn more about Two Open Doors and to engage with our community, I'd like to invite you to visit the Two Open Doors website at twoopendoors.com and the Two Open Doors Facebook group. Finally, I invite you to contact me directly by writing to me at Claude, C-L-A-U-D-E, at twoopendoors.com. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll use your input to guide my work on future blog posts and podcast episodes. Thank you for visiting Two Open Doors.